Hello, everyone, and welcome to the follow-up, where we pull back the curtain on the world of live events and performances, giving you a behind-the-scenes look that no one else gets to see. I'm your host, Katie Robinette, the owner of Robin Banks Entertainment, and with me, as always, is my co-host and trumpet extraordinaire and inspirational speaker, José Johnson.
Hey, folks. Thanks for tuning in today. We have got a real treat for you today, a topic that any musician or performer can relate to, the view from the stage, what we see that no one else does. We're diving into the funny, the heartwarming, and the downright bizarre moments that we catch during our shows, things that the audience probably never even knows is happening.
Yep, exactly. People think we just are up there playing music and vibing, but the truth is, we've got some of the best seats in the house for some of the craziest and sometimes the sweetest moments. Let's talk about some of those today, Jose. My first question is, for you is, what is something you've seen from stage that's kind of stuck with you for a long time?
Man, that's a good question because there are so many things. And usually the first thing that pops to mind are, the most recent events, and it's not a specific as much as like a general. One of the most heartwarming things to me is like when you're watching the expressions on people's faces when they're doing like the mother-son or the father-daughter dances. That's always really kind of cool because, people have been sitting there eating, drinking, and they're having the conversations. And when those moments hit, you start to see everybody's attention zero in on that. And that's really kind of a cool experience for us. Now, of course, some of the faces that you see sometimes,
I've seen some faces from the stage too. Sometimes we're pretty shocked at what comes out of people's mouths.
Oh my God, the speeches?
Yeah.
Jeez. Well, it was great. The last wedding we did, the father's speech, the father of the bride, his speech was very touching, very heartwarming. And he came up to me and our bass player, Mike Miller, and said, I hope the speech wasn't too long. I hope it wasn't too boring. And we're like, no, dude, that was actually a pretty good speech. We could tell you about some.
We've seen some and heard some interesting ones that were far too long and had people snoring, We've also heard some that were just so touching where there's been moments where I've gotten choked up. Because especially for a father, the speech is one of the most important pieces for the father of the bride in particular. And, it's always a very special. I know they plan that for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
That is their moment to shine because that's their baby girl up there. So we've seen some touching ones, and I've seen some ones that were a little bit, maybe a little flat.
Yeah. Yeah.
They fell a little flat.
Yeah.
But we've also seen and heard some maid of honor speeches and best man speeches that were kind of interesting.
Yeah. It's like maybe you should not try to be a comedian on that stage.
Although some of them are pretty good.
Oh, good.
Some of them are good.
It's the ones that usually think they're really funny. Not so funny.
Yeah. A lot of them, I've noticed they try to interject, some maybe inappropriate or things that had happened to them younger, in earlier years. What happened in college? That crazy time in college.
Or, sometimes it's like those cringeworthy scenes from movies, where it's a lot of, they're trying to tell a lot of inside jokes,
but they can't really tell the full story.
Yeah, so it's like, oh yeah, it's like that time that but we can't talk about that. No, if you're not going to talk about it, don't bring it up. Because everybody's going to think the absolute worst. And those are the moments where, especially like the best man speeches, because those are the ones that typically start to go down that. I remember one where the best man was giving a speech and he was talking about stuff related to some collegiate hijinks. And he just kind of poked at it, and I could just see the groom, his face like
all the blood went out of it. No, don't do that.
Yeah, the other thing is like I wish sometimes that we would just put like a GoPro up, an audience view of the stage, because some of the dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Holy cow.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we've seen some good ones.
I've seen some good ones.
We've seen some good ones. At the last wedding, there's some great dancers there. But there's some, especially when the alcohol starts.
Oh, yeah. There's this happens at every wedding. There's always that one groomsman. He happens to be the heavier set one,
right?
Usually. He always has the tie or his tie around his head.
Yeah.
And he's dancing around and he's sweaty and he's disgusting and he's looking like a clown. But everyone kind of loves it.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me like of a Vince Vaughn movie kind of vibe.
Yeah.
That's, that and the people who when they're dancing, there's always, not always, but there has been regularly been that one person who's trying to get a little too funky and ends up on the floor. And that's always interesting to see.
Yes. More on that. I definitely want to cross the on the floor piece. But I want to say, when it comes to dancing, I actually have some really great clips, so I'm going to include them in here. But we've had some pretty hip grandpas.
Oh, yeah.
This year, specifically. And I've got some really good footage of these grandpas on the floor, cutting a rug, and super cool dudes.
Yeah.
Super cool dudes. So
I remember that one wedding, the grandfather was just,
the Excelsior. We were at the Excelsior in downtown Lancaster.
He was grooving it.
And I'm going to show you the clip right now. I would say 95% of weddings we do, somebody ends up on the floor.
Sometimes it's band members, but...
Well, that's kind of part of our show, though. We like to get on the floor and boogie on down, and sometimes, Jose will lay on the floor. We're entertaining.
Yeah, sometimes I'm just tired,
Well, usually the guests end up on the floor because they've slipped in their high heels because somebody spilled their drink on the floor and the dance floor is slippery. So, and I've seen multiple people go down at a single wedding.
Yeah, that's the one thing I'm waiting for. I'm waiting for the conga line, which usually forms at some point.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the lead person on that or the caboose, one of them to fall down and then pull the entire room.
A little domino effect.
Yeah, so maybe if you're planning a wedding, you can kind of build that into your reception.
Well, I always see that one girl, on the floor. She is holding her phone in her hand, and then she's got the wine glass like this and holding it straight up. And I can't usually say anything because I'm usually singing, but I look at her and I look at that drink and I'm like, that's going to be on the floor at any moment.
Yeah.
And then someone's going to go down.
Well, what it kind of just completely took me down a different rabbit hole. One of my favorite gigs that we did was the wedding where the bride was a Ravens cheerleader.
Oh, yes.
And all of her cheerleader friends are there. It was, I don't think I've ever been in a room with so many good-looking people in my life.
I know.
But it was so funny to watch, when the girls were out there and they were dancing and they were doing, there was one point they did a little routine.
Oh, they did, yeah.
And just to watch, also watching the guys on the stage, watching the jaws drop and
There were lots of pom-poms involved.
Yes.
And then, of course, we got on some pom-poms on the stage, too, and we made it a point to be cheerleaders ourselves. But that was a super cool wedding. And of course, everyone there was good looking. And of course, everyone could dance.
But what made that even more interesting to me is the juxtaposition that occurs when you have these, girls who are these phenomenal dancers and their boyfriends are stiff as a board and they cannot dance to save their life. And it made it that much more glaringly apparent. It's like,
and if I do recall correctly, I believe the groom did a little cheerleader routine himself.
Yeah.
I might have even some footage of that too, but I shall look through my archives and see if we have that. But another thing, and I don't think you were actually in the band yet. We were doing an event, a wedding in Philadelphia, and somebody, I guess they were hammered, I don't know, but they fell right into the bandstand. I mean, smack in the middle of the band, flatten. We have these little bandstands that we use to hold our music and some of our stuff. And she flattened that out. She fell right on it into the middle of the bandstand. She was so embarrassed. And at the time, our lead singer, Miles, got on the microphone and said, "Are you okay?" and embarrassed her to death. She was like, "Shh, stop, I'm done. Don't bring this up anymore." Kind of interesting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you see all kinds of things that occur. I mean, like we said, you got the heartwarming, the touching, like when the little kids are there. What was the wedding we were at where they had the dog?
We get dogs.
Several dogs.
We have several dogs.
We haven't had a cat wedding yet.
But we have had a lot of like young kids that they were either really great dancers and boogieing down, or they were really into the music and bobbing their heads. We always like to see that. Actually, the wedding we just did this past weekend, everybody was on the dance floor.
Oh, it was amazing.
All ages.
Yeah.
I think the youngest was I didn't see super young, but maybe 10, 11.
Yeah.
And they were on the dance floor with Dancing Queen with the 80-year-old grandma,
Yeah, that's where it gets really cool. Now, one of the things that, having done so many weddings, every venue is different, and you have like your classic venues, the wedding halls and things like that. But like when we did that one wedding that was outdoors in the tent and the rains came and the mud was coming up through the floor and people were...
Oh, man. I can't say any names. I'll never say any names. I'll never bring up who a client is. But when they hear it, they're going to know that we're talking about them because they're friends of mine, actually. We were... Oh, man. This is pure crazy. We do a lot of tent weddings.
Yeah.
Not very many of them are on someone's private property. So we don't, there's a lot less control that we have when it's on someone's personal property. They had decided to set up the tent. They cleared a cornfield and leveled it and they actually put subflooring down over the ground. And subflooring's kind of, it's the stuff you put under your flooring, and it has holes in it. And it's kind of, is it foamy? It's kind of foamy-like.
Sort of.
But there are holes in it. And thinking that this was going to be a good solution for covering up the dirt. Well, it sounded like a great solution until it started raining. And it was raining probably a good 2 days, I think, before our wedding. So I know they ended up digging a trench around the tent to collect the water. And day of, boy, it was raining cats and dogs that day. And our sound engineer that day, when he went into setup, he put his foot down in the tent and squish. It was mud right up in his face through the subflooring. And he almost had a freak out moment because he's like, the band cannot perform like this. They can't. So they put down some tarps, blue tarps, but that was a super, super eyesore. So they ended up going to Ollie's and picking up $1,000 worth of rugs to put down where the band was. And it looked kind of bohemian and cool.
Yeah.
Until...
End of the night.
The end of the night. The didn't want to hold any more water. And that water spilled over into the reception tent, under the rugs, over the tarp. And next thing you know, we were stepping on soupy, mushy, muddy rugs. Our shoes were ruined. Our pants were ruined. Our gear was loaded with mud. And I think a lot of our gear still has that mud on it.
Yeah, actually, the wedge that our sax player was using on Saturday, I'm helping to set it up, and I look at, there's a lot of mud on there. I remember that.
It was. I was really concerned about our gear getting ruined because of that, but it was out of our control. I really did, as a band leader, I just didn't know what to do about that. To me, it's go on with the show.
Yeah, we made it work.
We did make it work.
But it was great watching, because when people were dancing, you could just see the mud just kind of splashing up, and people's pants was dripping. But the great part about it is that it was kind of like I guess being at Burning Man or Coachella or something like that. It was just so nasty, muddy. But the muddier and nastier it got, the more fun everybody would be having.
Well, surprisingly enough, people were prepared with galoshes. I think not me. I wasn't expecting it, or else I would have totally brought them with me. But that was kind of a crazy situation for us on stage.
Yeah,
I don't particularly like the dramatic moments.
Well.
But, we roll with the punches. We're kings and queens of pivoting. So we do what we have to do. But what are some of the funniest things that you've seen happen?
Oh, geez. I wish I could think of something off the top of my head right now. Because a lot of times I'm buried. You're
buried in your chart. I know.
Buried in my chart, or I'm watching for cues from the musical director on what's going to happen next. But you actually the one that I really remember is the one you already talked about, was the wedding with the guy with the pie on his head, and he was just going nuts. It was like a scene from Animal House. The guy was just. I was waiting for a shirt to come off. I mean, I didn't want his shirt.
Right.
But
Well, there's always, and I feel like I'm getting off topic, but there's always drunk uncle.
Drunk uncle.
Like Saturday Night Live, there's drunk uncle in there, but there's always the drunk uncle. He might not be drunk at the beginning of the night, but he's the one that's coming up to the band, middle of the dance set, going, "Can I sing a song? Can I sing a song?" And, our policy is we don't let anyone on the stage to do anything unless the bride and groom approves it ahead of time. And sometimes they're guilted into letting people do those things, which I try to make it a point to them to say, you don't have to do this. You can say no. Don't be guilted into this. So there's always that drunk uncle that wants to come on or show his guitar chops or something like that. So a lot of times we say no.
Yeah.
But every once in a while.
You kind of get guilted into it.
Yeah, once in a while.
And sometimes you get pleasantly surprised.
I've been pleasantly surprised a lot. I mean, we've had some very talented grooms. We've had grooms sit in with the band this year. We've had fathers of the bride sit in with the band. Actually, we have a wedding this Saturday, and the father of the bride's going to be playing some AC/DC with us.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this was not with CCO. This is years ago when I had a band of my own, and my martial arts teacher, his oldest stepdaughter was getting married, and he hired my band to play at the wedding. And so we're playing, and the bride, who I knew very well, obviously, she came up to me. She said, "Hey, the best man, we'd like to have him sit in with you guys." And I'm like, I'm not sure. And she's like, "Well, he's really good." And I'm like, okay, well, what did he do? He plays guitar. I'm like, I don't know. And then she said, "Oh, well, he is a professional musician." And I was like, "Well, who does he play with?" And she goes, "Have you ever heard of the band Galactic?" And I'm like, "Yes." Now, Galactic is like a New Orleans-based kind of like funk fusion, New Orleans band. I mean, they're
very good.
They're a big name band.
Oh.
And so I'm like, yeah. So, and this is our mutual friend Rod Gales was in the band.
Oh yeah.
And
hey,
I told Rod, and it's like, Rod, can you borrow your guitar? Yep. So
he said, "Yep." Okay.
And so that was great, But it was kind of cool with them watching the family, because they knew him.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's kind of like grooving and stuff like that. And it's like, wow, where did this guy come from?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But there have been other times where they don't live up to the hype.
No, sometimes we get people that we don't really allow a lot of people to get on stage either. But every once in a while, somehow they get up there to dance or shake a tambourine horribly, or they take my tambourine and run away.
Well, that I've seen that happen.
And I'm like, so my tambourine is kind of special because I waited a very, very long time for this particular white tambourine. So I'm always like worried that someone's going to take it and run off and never come back. But so far, that hasn't happened.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. So yeah, there's always some woman that wants to come and shake the tambourine for the band. We've also seen some things around the stage that, I mean, maybe some of you guys are okay with it, but we've seen a lot of underskirt.
Yeah. We've seen things that cannot be unseen.
Sometimes I'm actually shocked that people come out the door with a short dress on and then are okay with boogie down on the floor. And sometimes I wonder if it's not intentional or not.
There are days that I do think that was a planned move.
Maybe they like musicians. Maybe they're trying to get the eye of the guitar player or something,
Yeah, maybe. It's definitely not the horn player. I can tell you that for a fact. Nobody cares about us.
Well, there's like a whole thing with guitar players and lead singers.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people eyeballing a mod.
Oh, eyeballing and groping.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it does happen, folks. It does happen. I've actually had to write things into my contract saying you will not harass band members or touch our gear, or because it's all happened. And a lot of people, your gear is very important to you. It's expensive equipment. Nobody, someone coming up and playing your drums or playing your guitar without asking you, it's not really cool. But we've literally had people grope our musicians.
Are you talking about from the audience, or are you talking about fellow musicians groping each other? Because that's par for the course.
It is a show, so I don't know. That's happened too. But one of our other bands, Downtown Sound, specifically one of our singers, she was at a wedding, and the father of the bride groped her hiney, gave it a little squeeze. Ooh. And the bride saw, and the bride said, Dad, stop harassing the talent. And I was a little bit shocked. Now, that's like really super inappropriate.
Well, did it honk when she?
We'll have to ask her. I don't know, but this world, none of these things would go down in a corporate setting at all. So people have to understand that the entertainment world and the wedding world is kind of a different animal. And we deal with a lot of things that a lot of people don't have to deal with.
Well, if there was HR in the music industry, man.
I know.
We would all be screwed.
I know. I've often wanted to buy shirts for people saying, HR nightmare on it, because I know quite a few musicians that would be.
What other job can you be on where, you just, drop your pants and show your tidy while you're to everybody else in your office?
It's true. I mean, we find ourselves, in a changing room, in a room where we don't have anywhere else to change. So we all are, there's 10 of us, male and female, and we just got to get down into our skivvies and then put on our outfits, and, specifically our bass player, he likes to get down into his tighty whities as often as possible, it seems.
I think,
I feel like I've seen him in his tighty whities like almost every show we've done.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, I just imagine that's the way he walks around his house all the time.
He does say he wears this nice underwear for our jobs.
Boy, if that's the nice stuff, I have that could be very ugly. But when you're talking about being on stage and looking out what we see, the faces of people, they tell you some great stories, and I think at the end of the day, the thing that really makes me love what I do and, being part of Wedding Band, because let's face it, if you're a musician, you have probably gone through a phase in your life where you have talked shit about wedding bands.
Oh, yeah.
Like, oh, you're in a wedding band?
Oh, yeah.
And I will tell you, as someone who's been playing, music for almost 50 years at this point, I love doing this because when you're playing in a club, people may or may not be paying attention to you.
Yeah.
I always felt like it was like background music for people trying to get laid.
Yeah.
Right. Well, in weddings, it's still the same thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, when with weddings, having a more intimate setting where we're not separated by a large stage and lights, where we're close to the audience, where we have people all around us and watching the reactions of people, not just on the dance floor, but the people that are sitting there still having conversations, having meals. And when their favorite song, we play their favorite songs, either they're running to the dance floor or, like in the case of like some of the older members of the families and the guests, you just see them kind of bopping their heads and they're just laughing and they're having a good time. And to know that
you're the one,
something, that just, to me, that's almost worth as much as paid.
Yeah. I've had a lot of people they haven't really come out and say this directly, but there's a stigma attached to being in a wedding band that you're selling out. And I really don't think that's the case. We get to bring enjoyment to people. The reason we're there is to entertain and show their guests a good time. And I am beaming with joy usually at the end of the night when I know we've done a stellar job. I mean, we really, really highly focus on making sure that dance floor is packed, that people are having a great time. We want them to talk about it for months after. A lot of them don't. It's a built-in audience, too. So you're going to coming to party. You're going to drink and party and have a good time. And so usually our nights, I leave very fulfilled at the end of the night. Especially this last wedding. I just felt really good at the end of the night. We just got some really, really great feedback. So, a big part of it for me is making people happy and creating memories. And part of that is getting them on the dance floor and watching them smile and cheer and do those fun things. Speaking of selling out, how a lot of people say that wedding musicians are selling out. It's a very solid job.
Yep.
They're going to be weddings forever. And they're always going to need entertainment. Now, granted, we're always, I don't want to say we're in a battle with DJs, but it's not really the case because someone that wants a 10-piece horn band like ours doesn't necessarily want a DJ. So there are different types of clientele. So I can't even, we're not even the same type of thing, but the clients that want us there they honestly, with us, they want us because they love the horns. They love the horn section.
Good.
Well, and one of the fun things our horn section does is you guys get on the dance floor.
Yeah, absolutely.
They have wireless mics, and they get out on the dance floor, dance with the audience, literally get down on the floor.
Yeah, yes, that's true.
And just people are so intrigued by it. It's so cool. Now, and Jose here, he's a multitasking kind of guy. He gets on the front line too and sings and raps with us too. So, and I think people think that's novelty because, wasn't he just playing trumpet? So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun to do stuff like that. Let me ask you, Katie, have you ever, I mean, because I've never experienced this at a wedding, but have you ever seen like a fight break out?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm trying to recall the instant. One of the very first weddings that I ever did, there was some heated exchanges with the drunk uncle. It's always the drunk uncle.
The drunk uncle.
Causing problems. Maybe he had, too much whiskey, he was angry. He was whiskey angry and started, tried to start a fight, and it was broken up. But that's the only instance I've seen that. But it happens.
How about party pukers?
Not right in front of me. I have gone to the restroom and heard somebody in there, super, super sick. I've seen some people being dragged out of the venue at the end of the night. I have experienced some. So one of the most traumatic things that I've seen, I was living in Dallas at the time, and I was singing in a band down there, and we were set to do this wedding at someone's personal home, and they were set up outside for dinner, and the catering was outside, the stage was outside, and wouldn't you know it, a storm rolled through and they lost electricity. Everything got wet. They didn't pre-plan, so their table settings were wet.
Oh, no.
Everything was just ruined, but the electricity did not come back on at all. So the catering could not finish whatever they were doing back there. It was cold food. The band couldn't start playing. There was no electricity. The mother of the bride was crying. The bride was crying.
Oh.
And everyone, there must have been 200 guests. There must have been 200 people stuffed like sausages into their house. It was just so dramatic. I mean, the whole day was ruined. The whole day was 100% ruined. Now, the band tried to do our best. We actually set up a small acoustic thing in their living room and tried to kind of salvage the night, but it did not go over well.
Yeah. We could do a whole episode on power outages.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's happened recently. Were you on the job? Well, maybe, I don't think you were on the job yet, but our horn section had to salvage an electricity outage, and at one point, and everyone just kind of sang and played acoustic, and until the power came back on, we tried to salvage the event, which we totally did, which is what we do. We save the moment.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the moments, like with anything, there's a level of unpredictability, and with weddings being so detailed in terms of the timelines and all this stuff, you got to learn how to go with the flow.
Oh my gosh.
And that's I see that from our side of the stage, being on the stage, how we have to become adaptable. And then, the other vendors, same thing. They have to be adaptable. But the guest also.
Oh, yeah.
So
it's all about communication. It's all about being comfortable pivoting and being prepared to do so at any point in time, because anything can change. We might have a timeline, but I can tell you, you can try to follow it, but, you really rarely ever stay on that exact timeline. You're usually this past wedding we did, we started 20 minutes early, and then we ended up starting our dance set probably 20 minutes late.
Yeah.
So it varies, and you have to be comfortable. And if you're uncomfortable in that moment, it might not be the job for you. But if you're gonna work in a wedding band, you gotta know that this is just part of the role. Communication on stage between us, our band leader, keeping an eyeball on the other vendors, keeping great communication with them, keeping great communication, an eyeball on the audience too. How are they reacting to things? If they're reacting adversely to a song, we're going to shift our strategy,
Why would anyway? They wouldn't have adverse reactions to songs. Is that a thing?
Yeah. I mean, when I see people clear the dance floor, that's an issue for me.
Well, there you go. Right. Or maybe the cake's being served.
Or that, or maybe they just don't like a song.
That's true.
I mean, we really try to curate our playlists based on the guest demographics and what our bride and groom's like. But every once in a while, something just doesn't hit as well as something else.
No, you can never please everybody.
No, you cannot. But we surely do try.
Yeah. Well, I was speaking of flexibility. At the end of the night, as you have referenced this, we usually, one of our closers is Fireball. And that's one of the tunes that I come out and do. And that's where, the horn section gets down, and everybody's getting down with us. And I've seen some people like trying to get low and wondering if they were going to be able to walk the next day because I remember seeing one girl because I was kind of getting down there, and
you impressed me actually.
Well,
I'm impressed by your agility.
Nowhere near where I used to be. But she was trying to keep up, and she hit a spot where, and I know this spot well because it's happened to me before, where I could tell her knee was kind of seizing up on.
Oh yeah, I've been there, so I know what that feels like.
Like going down, and it's like
oh yeah.
And then she kind of pushed herself down, and then one of her friends had to kind of help her to get back.
Well, I'm usually in high heels, so a lot of times I'll get down. I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna stand back up. Yeah. Although part of my gimmick is, I don't care what your needs feel right now. Get down.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So yeah, we've talked about some of the goofy stuff and some of the touching stuff. Yes.
Bizarre stuff.
Bizarro. What's the most bizarre thing you've seen, Katie?
So this is an interesting thing to bring up. I've been kind of all over the place, but in terms of living, I was doing a wedding in Chicago, and the wedding happened to be for a couple who were attorneys. They were both attorneys. And granted, all of their friends and attendants were also attorneys. Now, they were kind of on a bender. They had been on a bender for a couple of days.
Oh.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I know. Pre-gaming.
They were pre-gaming for several days, and they were all high as kite. And at the end of the night, the bride snuck away with the guitar player to smoke weed, and the new groom could not find her.
Ooh.
So that was kind of a bizarro thing that I went through.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of corrupt a little bit. Yeah. So that's just why I hesitate to bring that one out.
Cringeworthy.
Yeah, kind of weird.
Boy, I can't say that I've ever had that wonderful experience.
It was just a little odd.
Well, I think top of mind stuff. Just the gig that we did recently, there was that. We're playing at the American Swedish History Museum.
Yes, in Philly.
Beautiful venue, outside under a tent. Perfect weather for that.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome.
It was a little muggy when we first got there for setup, but it turned out to be a beautiful evening, except for on the other side of the park they had that big pavilion, and they're blasting music over there, and it's like during the ceremony, like when the ceremony was starting, there's music going, and there's at one point when we stopped playing, and I'm like.
And you can hear merengue over here.
What, did I miss something? Yeah, I thought my ears were freaking.
Or the ice cream truck driving by.
Yeah, that was
real good background for a ceremony.
Yeah, that kind of pissed me off because I really wanted some ice cream.
Oh well,
I'm on stage.
Sorry.
Go.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Well, you know what else happened? And this is kind of off topic from what we're doing right now, but we left that venue just in time because there was. I don't want to say it was a riot, but it was, I actually have a news article about it. It was, I guess, car meetups in Philadelphia. There were car meetups on the 21st night of September, all over Philadelphia, and they happened to have met up and in front of this venue. Now, the venue was within the fence, but there were cars doing donuts. I mean, hundreds of cars doing donuts, people with guns, people setting off fireworks. It was pure craziness. And there was, they did all these news articles on it. We didn't know it was happening the night of, but we narrowly escaped that craziness. Our sound engineer, however, was not as successful on his escape, and I think he had to wait about an hour before the cops could even clear them out.
Yeah. I remember him saying something about like 40 cops they had to bring in to clear the area.
Yeah. So we were kind of lucky in regards to that, but that was kind of a bizarre after gig thing that we ran into that you just never know.
Yeah. Speaking of bizarre and funny.
Yeah.
I remember we did a wedding where the brides, one of the bridesmaids, I think it was the sister of the bride, she did her toast as a rap, and it was to I gave her a karaoke track, right, for her to do it over. What was that? It was Will Smith. It was Fresh Prince of...
Oh, yeah, it was Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Yeah. And it was...
She was like, in West Philadelphia. I don't know what she said, but...
Yeah. But it was...
That was very... I don't think it was bizarre. It was very unique.
It was, it was one of those things where it's like, if she had stopped after the first verse, I think it would have been cool. It's like kind of cool, kind of quirky, kind of funny. But like to do a whole track, and it started out, and everybody in the band was kind of like this, and you saw people in the audience are kind of like this, and then when it got to like the third verse, people kind of got old. It kind of got old. Yeah. So that's one of those times where you're watching the audience, and like we always talk about, know your audience, know who you're in front of, and
I always say keep it short and sweet.
Yeah, well, it was neither short nor
sweet. Well, we always say keep it at 5 minutes or less, and and that's pushing it in a lot of cases. That doesn't really happen all that much, but. Yeah. Anyway,
so have you ever seen anything weird happen, interesting happen, like in terms of not the wedding party or the guest, but like the vendor side of things?
Oh man, I have all kinds of stories about other vendors. The weird thing about vendors is that you want to work well with them, you want to get along with them, you are a team on a wedding. I have had some vendors that didn't want to be team players, I can tell you that. There was one wedding we had done in Maryland, and it almost felt like every vendor in our vendor meeting wanted to take control over the situation, and it was almost like there were too many cooks in the kitchen, and nobody could ever come to a final agreement about anything. So it was very frustrating, very agitating. Sometimes we had a wedding this year, and I'll say this ahead of this coming out of my mouth. I've worked with amazing wedding planners. However, I have also worked with some that I cannot figure out what they have actually done. There was one we did in Pittsburgh this year where I have no idea what the wedding planner actually did. I felt like I met her, and we were very kind and exchanged, we talked about things, but she was very demure, like she almost hid in the corner, and like she wasn't very verbal about things. And you cannot be a demure wedding planner. You have to be like a go-getter. And I don't know what the heck she did. I felt like I planned the whole thing. Kind of falls into our lap a lot of times.
Yeah, well.
It falls into a lot of different vendors' lap. I mean, a lot of times it falls into the photographer's lap. Sometimes it falls into the caterer's lap. Sometimes it falls into my lap to do the planning of the day. Because couples think that, I don't need a wedding planner and the event coordinator is going to do it.
Well, guess again.
Yeah. And then I've had some really amazing event coordinators that planned like a planner, and went above and beyond. So I've really worked with all types, really. I have worked with some that were almost irate. They were like the angry vendors, like the louder I scream at my staff, the more that's going to get done. And that's just not the case. That's just not the case at all. People aren't going to listen to you when you're screaming like a maniac. Nothing's going to get out faster,
Why do you scream at us all the time?
Sorry. I don't scream. That's not true. I might have a thinking face that people sometimes think that I'm mad or angry or...
You're always mad, Kate. I don't know what's wrong. Gee.
No, but I do get asked a lot, what's wrong? What's wrong? Are you mad at me? And no, I'm just like, no, that's just my face.
Yeah. Well, speaking of like the last gig, when we were setting up, because that's also a time when you see a lot of stuff that goes on, because we're there and we're watching what's going on. I don't know how many times I have seen someone from the catering staff, trying to carry way too many things at the same time, getting the sudden joy of the sound of breaking glass and crashing, and
I've been there.
Wailing and gnashing of teeth. And
Been there. I used to be a server, and I used to serve like for large like catering events. And I recall serving for like a Mother's Day event once, and I went down with a huge thing of glasses, and so I kind of feel for him.
Yeah, I feel for him too. I mean, crap, I'm dropping stuff all the time, but that's just because I'm clumsy. But no, I'm not clumsy. But one of the things that also comes up a lot when you're playing is where you're monitoring the responses of the audience. It's always great to see the people that are into it, but every once in a while you'll find a person who just looks like
they're miserable,
like someone just ate their cat. Obviously, a wedding in Springfield, but there are occasionally people that you can tell they would just want to be home on their couch, and they're sitting there all night and waiting for, they just want to go home. That's usually our keyboard player.
That's not true.
Love you, Sam.
Not true. But yeah, you sometimes have the grumpy one in the back, that is just pouting. It seems like they're pouting all night.
Yeah.
But, I've also been there too. Have you ever gone to something and you're just like, I want to go. I just want to be at home. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Yeah. I really made José work really hard this morning.
Yeah.
Getting this set up.
It's all good.
Being our first episode and all, we wanted to make sure everything was right. And so he did a killer job.
Just say it with a check.
I know. Well, okay. Well, I hope we've dug into some interesting things that we've seen on stage.
As many as we could discuss based on statutes and limitations.
That's true.
Because there's some stuff you just...
There are going to be some interesting things. I feel like people are going to watch the episodes and be like, oh, that was my wedding. They're talking about me.
Yeah. Or
I'm the vendor that they're talking about right now. But
names have been changed, protect innocent, guilty, whatever. But yeah, it is interesting. I think sometimes when you're on our side of the stage, that you can see things that other people just can't. And there are certainly times where the energy of the room and the interaction with the people in the room just kind of helps us to elevate our game. And there are times when...
It's true. It does go the other way too. Our job is to show up and put on an amazing show. And sometimes it's really hard to do when there isn't a level of high energy in the room, because we have to bring it. But we definitely feed off of excitement and happiness and all of that. And so that elevates our performance for sure. But sometimes it's really hard.
Yeah. Especially like when we haven't even played a note yet and you see people doing this.
Oh, or turning down the hearing aid.
Yeah, well, that's me.
One note to brides: do not put the hearing aid people up by the speakers. Please don't do that. Put them in the back. Put them in the back. Put the young hipsters in the front that can tolerate it. Not that we do anything extraordinarily loud or anything like that, but it's, you always get those people that are.
Yeah, and then like I said, a lot of times it's before you even played it.
Oh, I know.
They've already assuming that
our sound engineer, Kevin, he's usually like, oh, they've already come up to me and complained, and we haven't even done a sound check yet. So, yeah, that's kind of annoying.
Yeah,
because it's not going to get any quieter.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, between weddings and of course all the corporate events that we do and the festivals, you like not a non-wedding thing. Like one of the coolest things was when we did the gig up in Lock Haven, and the stilt walker came out.
Oh yeah.
And she's like dancing along with stuff. Yeah, that was so cool.
What's her name?
Danny
Stiltwalker.
Danny Longlegs.
Danny Longlegs. Yeah, that was super cool. That was a really interesting gig because that little town is kind of in the middle of nowhere. When we were driving there, we're like, where is it? I mean, it's like a 2-block town.
Yeah.
But everyone in that town came out for this little festival.
They did. But that was like so cool to see her engaging not only with the audience but also with us. Mm-hmm. So it created this really kind of nice synergy.
Yep.
So it's always great when there are people that do get involved to that level, whether it be at a wedding or a corporate function or anything like that, where their energy becomes contagious to us.
Mm-hmm. Done a lot of festivals this summer. There was actually a festival that we did this year. It was in Maryland. It was 4th of July. Where were we? We were in Gaithersburg. Man, oh man, that was the most diverse crowd I have ever seen in my life. Now, granted, I think they said Gaithersburg's like one of the most diverse towns in the United States. I think that's what they told me, the Park and Rec people. We saw every walk of life, and all, at the event, all the kids were sitting out front. Yep. They were standing out front dancing, but you saw these little eyeballs staring up at us, and they're all in awe. Because it's cool, But every race, every nationality, they were all there together, watching us, and it just made me feel real good.
Yeah, that was a cool gig. Yeah, I think festivals are always interesting in that. As opposed to the wedding, where we've got this very compact and unified theme. The festivals, you have people are there because they want to come see the band. You have people are there because they just like the venue or the festival, or there's all kinds of reasons people are there, and it's really kind of an interesting thing. And I think a lot of times people don't know what to expect. But
there are a few that we do that we know that they're lawn chair people and that they're not going to get out of the lawn chair, which it kind of it's one of those things where we're like we know they're lawn chair people, and we've got to up our game for those. It feels like, and then there are some that we do where we know that they specifically come there to dance.
Yep.
There's Springersbury Township, for example, that's a kind of a good mix. There's a lot of lawn chair people, and then there's a lot of people that they come there specifically to dance and boogie down. Same with Nisley Vineyards. There's a lot of people that want to sit and eat and drink and enjoy the show from their chair, and then some that they've got like 1, 2, 3 dance floors that they at Nisley, and so usually they're jam packed.
So they're always fun. Some of the expressions on people's faces sometimes I think are real interesting, because one of the things, like if you're going to be a good events band, you have to be versatile.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way around it.
Mm-hmm.
And when people ask me, who do I play with and what kind of music do we play? And I'm like, it's all over the place.
Yeah.
We
do everything.
Yeah, everything from, Frank Sinatra, Miles Davis
to AC/DC,
Bruno Mars,
mm-hmm.
So it's like, we're all over the place. And then it's like sometimes when people because we always come out with that high energy thing.
Yeah.
So it's going to be something like, September or, Celebration, some sort of classic kind of horn band party,
mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll switch gears and do like a country song.
Oh, yeah.
Or do, a jazz stanza or something. And people you start to see jaws drop sometimes
mm-hmm.
because they have no idea how versatile we are as musicians.
Yeah.
And then we always hear about it after. It's like, oh my God, you guys were so great. I can't believe you pulled that off. Remember the time we did the Paradise by the Dashboard Lights?
Uh-huh. We've done that several times.
Yeah.
But it's a wedding request that we've done several times, but I always thought that was an unusual wedding request, but we've done it several times, pulled it off so well. That's a rock opera, like a rock opera.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's hard. And Amy and Miller pull it off. Our lead singer, Amy, and our bass player, Mike Miller, just do a fantastic job of covering those vocals. Like killer. And it's a hard song in terms of structure too. I mean, it's kind of
the band's got to be on top of it. You got to be on top of it.
It was pretty impressive.
Thank God there are horns on it because that's when I get to just kind of go out and goof off a bit. But that was so great because I think the last time we did it, I'm trying to remember where that wedding was, but I seem to remember being like an outdoor, like a tent wedding, but the bride and groom were just so into it. They're just singing along.
Well, I mean, I think that's a request by someone who's very, very much loves that song.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they're jamming down. I did have this. I did want to ask you this. What are the songs that you've noticed that we do that immediately we know that people are gonna be on the dance floor no matter what?
They're the standard.
I know. They're always the standard.
Standards,
It's
September.
Uptown Funk.
Yeah. Fireball.
Yep. So funny that you bring up September. There's another podcast that's called the Vendor Table Podcast, and they are photographers, and they are super, super annoyed that every wedding band starts off the night with September.
Yeah.
They made it a point to do a podcast on it, and I think it's funny because from entertainment perspective, like we know that gets people on the dance floor. Now, granted, we did it on Saturday night, and it was the 21st night of September. But the bride and groom requested that we do that as an encore. So we did it at the end of the night. But I thought for sure, oh my gosh, people were going to be like, when is this band going to play September?
Yeah. Well, it's like one of the colloquialisms for party bands is a brick house band.
Mm-hmm.
Because pretty much we don't play brick. We haven't played brick house in a long time.
Yeah, but it's in our rep.
It's in our rep. But that's the thing. There's certain songs that if you are in a specific genre, so if you're a bar band, there's certain songs that you need to play. If you're a wedding band, there's certain songs you need to play, and you may not particularly like the song.
Oh my gosh!
But if your job is
if I have to sing September one more time, no, I'll be honest. There are songs we do so much that I'm like, oh my gosh, I have to sing this again. I used to feel that way about Don't Stop Believin', but I used to be in an 80s cover band like back in the day, and like all I did was, I did it all the time. Now I feel that way about September. I feel that way about Uptown Funk. All the heavy hitters that we do so much, they don't necessarily sit with us as our favorites anymore. And as a matter of fact, when the radio is on, okay, that just dated me a little bit because I'm sorry.
Nobody listens to radio.
According to my younger musicians, they look at me like I have 4 eyeballs because they're like, radio? What's the radio? Even my 16-year-old son doesn't even know how to turn on the radio and dial in a station. Anyway, that's another side story. But anything that's on the radio that might pop up that's in our repertoire that we do a lot, we got to move on. I can't listen to this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've gained a new appreciation for a lot of these songs that I've played for years, mostly because, playing with a really good group of musicians. I mean, I've played with a lot of great musicians over my lifetime, but I think that this band in particular, the mixture of talents in that band it's so much fun.
I don't think we actually have said the band's name the entire time. We're talking about Central City Orchestra, baby. Based right here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Thank you.
We're very much a mid-Atlantic band. Our musicians are kind of scattered throughout the central Pennsylvania region and Philadelphia. So we pull our talent from kind of a wide area, but we're kind of in the middle of everything. So
yeah, always in the middle of everything.
We live in the middle of. We're based between Philly and Baltimore and Wilmington, and we're in the car all the time.
Yeah. Driving Miss Daisy.
Yes, Jose likes to drive me around.
My job.
That's his job.
That's my job.
Well, we are ride or dies, so when we are out on the road, we typically travel together.
Chauffeur, bodyguard.
I mean, I think it's a fair deal. I'll pay for the gas, he drives.
Life coach.
I know. Well, yeah, you turn into my life coach.
Yeah, therapist, whatever.
Yeah, which is where we came up with the concept for this little show. But
one of my stupid ideas.
I think it was my idea. Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. I think we might have touched on everything we wanted to touch on. I'm sure there's so much more. I think we got off base just a little bit, but that's our first episode of the follow-up. Thank you for joining us for this little peek behind the scenes. And if you've enjoyed hearing about the funny, the touching, and the bizarre things that we've talked about today that we've seen from stage, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review.
Yeah. And, if you've got something that you would like us to talk about, drop us a comment.
Yeah, drop us a comment.
We'd like to share our experience, our expertise, and our takes.
Yeah, and this is kind of a... not 100%. This is kind of a bigger thing than just weddings or, we're following up on anything. Really, it could be following up on your wedding. We might have a bride and groom or a groom and groom or a bride and bride come in and sit with us and talk about their process and what they would do differently. Sometimes we'll probably have some musicians come in and talk about things. We might have other vendors, maybe corporate event vendors or come in and share their perspective. And heck, we might even do a follow-up on something that has nothing to do with an event. You never know. Like, how was the Super Bowl party that you threw at your house? I don't know. And it could be a little bit of anything.
It could be a little bit of anything, yeah. It probably will be because, we're both a little ADD at times. So.
I know. We kind of are. But
bounce all over the place.
We do.
But it's all good. It's all good.
Yep.
So, Katie, always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. Again, I will say I am Katie and this is Jose. The follow-up is sponsored by Robin Banks Entertainment. You can check us out at robin-banksentertainment.com. You can see all of our musicians, all of our bands, all of the awesome things we get to do on there. You can follow us on social media as well. And, we hope to see you out there in the crowd.
Yeah, and don't worry. If we see you and you do something that's noteworthy,
we will definitely talk about it.
Yeah, we just won't name names.
We won't name your names.
We won't name names, but
we're going to put it in here.
Yeah, but your secret's safe with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in.
Thank you. Okay. Till next time.